Imagina uma vida dedicada à defesa da liberdade, ao contacto com a natureza, ao amor, à paz e à vida em comunidade. Este episódio vai ser falado em inglês.
What is this beautiful future that we're trying to create? What are the little glimpses we have of it? Could we actually go and scoop up and drink the water again? That's a beautiful dream, but at the moment it's not possible. It's about dealing with climate justice. It's realizing the roots of climate injustice. Blue dye coming from some industrial unit, completely discoloring the water and killing the baby ducklings that were in the water side.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the ECCOS channel, the series Dreamers, Nature Lover. And today we have quite a dreamer, quite a nature lover. We have Duncan Crowley with us, an architect, action researcher, and a climate activist as well. A person that is exploring how communities respond to ecological crisis through the regenerative and nature-inspired approach. Thank you so much, Duncan, to be with us. Please tell us a bit more about yourself as an introduction.
Hello, Guilherme. Guramila Mahagut. Tá Jonish Latza. I'm just saying in my own language, in the Irish language, thank you very much. And it's lovely to be here with you now.
Thank you so much, Duncan, us to your time and honor to have you in our channel. So what can you say about yourself? Definitely you're Irish, we can know that, and you're living in Portugal, right?
That's right, yeah. So I'm Irish. I'm an architect by training, and I've been involved in ecological movements and different sorts of eco-living and regenerative thinking for many years. I think things started in around 1996. That's when I began getting involved with local movements in my own country in Ireland. In 2006, I left Ireland. I moved to Barcelona, lived there for about 8 years. Met my wife, who's from the Andes, from Ayacucho in Peru. Moved to Brazil, was there for about 4 years, and moved here about 8 years ago. So that's kind of the rough journey of how I've arrived to Portugal. And yeah, I'm just finishing a PhD at the moment in the architecture school in ISCTE, and really, I suppose, trying to bring together a reflection upon the work I've been doing for 30 years now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and just for the public know, I will share all the links that Duncan want to share. I know you have an Instagram page, maybe like just people to know Duncan. It's developing a lot of actions, very cool actions, going to nature, connecting ourselves, and I really interested in you to talk about us, your mission at the moment. You don't really have a project going on or working on one, but you have a mission that is amazing. The main reason I want to invite you to interview here in our channel. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I suppose in kind of bringing in all the different areas of work together, I'm bringing it under the idea or the theme maybe of connecting communities for system change. So the two sides of that, one is understanding the crisis that we're in. That's an ecological climate, but as well it's a social biodiversity crisis. Understanding the roots of that, like what are the systems that have led us into this terrible situation we're in. But then looking also then at the solutions. Well, what things can we do or do we have to do to really bring about the change? So that's why it's bringing in system change. So with that, it's very much looking at and imagining and working with groups for a few decades now, in imagining a kind of a world which is not built and run on the current system, which is built on infinite and exponential economic growth under the capitalist system, which the current economic and political system is, because it's identifying that this is the root cause of the destruction we're seeing, the need to further take over the last remaining parts of the planet, get rid of things and use those things for really for profit. So that's part of it. In terms of connecting communities, I myself, like having moved from different countries, I'm involved with many different sorts of different groups. So trying to see a little bit about what the groups are working for, the value systems, the way that groups engage, the way that they try to move forward, or how to bring other people on board. And that involves learning different languages, living in different communities, and also working with groups that are maybe in the same country, very, very different sorts of groups that have different challenges. So it could be, for example, trying to make connections between the housing movement here in Portugal with the ecological movement, and maybe also connecting in with nature and going into nature and trying to see, well, what are the components that can work together to really start to make bigger impact. So that's an introduction to that. So connecting communities for system change.
Yeah, it's amazing. I just not long ago, I just finished to read the book of Together in Rupture, I believe, Juntos na Ruptura, from Jem Bendel from Bamboal, Portugal, the editora Bamboal, Portugal. And it's quite a big book and talk all about it. In the opinion of Jam, we start this crisis really in a, let's say, very hardcore way since 2016, the social crisis and all this rupture about ancient values, etc. And it's funny that he make this kind of concept. So we all know we live in a consumist society, right? Our society, it's built on buying, selling, jobs. And he give this kind of a new upgrade, now he said not only in a consumed society, of a society of consuming, we live in an industrial consuming society. And it's funny, it's quite subtle, the upgrade, but change everything, because in the way we consume mainly of our stuff that is done, fabric, in a very industrial way, a lot of units made, we kind of start to consume in an industrial way. People have to buy. I have a lot of, let's say, every time I'm talking about it, I'm kind of ecological, an eco-fanatic, let's say, and I always explore, and like things like people, I get a lot of the feedback of, oh, I do need to travel to another country every year. For example, it's very important for me. Of course, it's amazing to travel, but this kind of mindset, and just to give you the word now, what do you have to say about this, about how people feel themselves happy or realize in life in a way they need to consume? It's very funny. And what do you think about it?
The modern contemporary value system is based on, I think it's a very empty system. I think that's why we have such health problems. When I look at, the fashion world and the things that drive celebrity world and people following these people for different reasons, I just see it's very empty, and it's, I think that the modern world is so void of real beauty. We've cut out the most amazing things, the sense of connection with nature. So I think that's part of it. I think the modern world is, yes, we're within it still trying to make change, but I think it's lost a lot. But I would disagree that about 2016 being the start of this, crazy crisis that we're in. I think this is just another stage of a very old and very deep crisis. Personally, I think it's coming from a lot of the value systems that were explored by colonial systems, especially in Europe.
Of course. Yeah. Well, Jam, it's like, maybe I was not clear enough. It's all about the collapse. Like 2016, 2016 for Jam Bandle, it's the starting of the collapse. And he talk all about that issues, about history. He actually talk about colonialism, and he thinks like that's the origin of everything actually. So you kind of match. But the collapsing of these models that we are seeing, of course, then we can have the climate crisis and so many crises. And I think we're living in an ethical collapse moment, right? Like a lot of world leaders that now you watch in the TV or in the news, and the way they speak, the way they decide the destiny of others and about other countries, it's quite amazed. They you know, in my opinion, we kind of see these bully shows in the news. You kind of watch people talk in a very bully way, as they were like in the high school or whatever. Some of them, in my opinion, they kind of speak in a teenage way. You know, that's quite amazed as well, horrible and spooky, right?
Yeah, well, we've it's not just the way they're talking, but it's the actions that these so-called world leaders are carrying out. We've just lived through a genocide. We're still seeing ethnic cleansing going on in the West Bank and in Gaza as well. So I think it's easy to blame the leaders. They're the ones that we see on the television, like Trump and many others. And again, the growth of far-right movements. You know, it's a very worrying time. You're seeing people of, like my wife, she's a brown woman from the hills of Peru. I have many friends who are queer friends, black friends, Jewish friends, Muslim friends, and we're seeing the hate growing to the point where people are being attacked, people are being killed, houses are being attacked. You know, riots all over the UK, including the north of Ireland, trying to burn people of colour out of their homes or just burn them dead. You know, that's part of the reality we're in. So when I go back to what the work I'm doing, it's about dealing with climate justice. It's realizing the roots of climate injustice, seeing the systems that maintain inequality in the world today. But also it's looking at what, especially because I've returned back to Europe, seeing where Europe, what part Europe has had in the story of bringing us to where we are. And I don't see that we're doing enough. Like, for example, given the genocide in Gaza for those 2 years that the war lasted, you know, like it's easy to blame the politicians, but I think the important thing is that people are in the streets and people are getting active, pushing for real change. That's the only way I believe the change happens, when communities get organized, they have an idea of where they're trying to go to, and they push for that change. And I've been involved in some moments like that in Barcelona with the occupations 2011 that led to the subsequent rebel cities in Spain from 2017, Ada Colau, the first woman mayor of Barcelona, and also in Curitiba with Gorda, a local punk street activist who got voted in as a councillor in the city and now is one of the governors of the state of Paraná in the south of Brazil. So they're just two examples of how local communities can fight for change, not violently, but fight for change and bring about the change that they want. Because personally here in Portugal, I see it as being, unfortunately, with and I say this as an Irish person, so I know we're very different worlds that we're coming from, but seeing what's been happening, the Irish response to the genocide and the Portuguese response, two totally different responses. Yeah. Where in the streets here in Portugal, in Lisbon, people even moved from Portuguese to English because local Portuguese people wouldn't turn up. So I don't feel we do enough, and that's the area I try to explore. What does it mean to turn up more and to do more, and what stops us from doing that?
Great. And as well, people like you inspire me so much about the way you are connected, and you try to, and you make this kind of either workshops, wherever, connecting people with nature. We were together in that very amazing walk we did in this kind of movement. Maybe you can clarify it better. That was beautiful, and I think a lot this kind of collapse going more and more deep, and then you have the consequence about this kind of cause, humanitarian causes. And I think there's a lot linked with the consumist way we think and we kind of try to live upon. And there's, in my opinion, this big, huge lack of connection with the natural, with nature. I do know you have a very good opinion about it, and I want to speak with you more. How come it's so important? I know it's kind of cliche. Some people that in the end I ask them to give some tips about to others how they can connect, because regeneration start in us. If we don't do for us to regenerate, we're never going to be able to regenerate nothing. So how do you feel, how do you like to approach this kind of issue, this lack of connection with the natural, with nature?
Well, I've brought a prop. Hopefully this is allowed. So
Okay.
this is Hamish, a little climate refugee.
You have
from
to
the south.
put more up.
So here's
Yes,
So,
that's your project in LinkedIn. I gotta.
yeah. So
Yeah,
this
we are
is
nature. We are nature. Yeah,
this
great.
is Hamish, and here's Brian. Brian is a little kingfisher, or a guarda-rios in Portuguese. Yeah, they're just little props that I use. When I go to demos, to manifestations on the streets, I bring Hamish, like in the Quinta dos Ingleses. Hamish is in the streets doing his little
That's so
protest.
amazing, man. That's great.
Yeah. So, but seriously, so I take that the lovely quote by Isa Freemau. I can't pronounce her French name very correctly. And Jay Jordan. And Jay Jordan was they were responsible for setting up the Clown Army, which I was part of back in 2003 or 2002 or three, I think it was. So a long time ago. But the quote during the climate games that they set up when the COP was on in Paris in 2015, we are not fighting for nature. We are nature defending itself. And I think that's that beautiful shift to making the link that nature is not something over there, oh, save the whales or just keep the rainforests as it was in the 90s. No, it's the whole process that we need to survive. So if this system continues, we're basically cutting off the life support system for us, our species. So I think that's the fundamental thing, that seeing that humans are not disconnected from it. Humans are an integral part of nature, and that's why we need to fight for the nature that it's kept and that's improved, because it's now already at such a broken state. So from that, personally, I find water a great source of inspiration. So dealing with these heavy issues for a long time, going out into nature and finding beautiful places of nature. So outside my own city, I found a river. I'm an atheist, but the way I connect with nature is I go to water, I put my head into the river or into a waterfall, and listen underwater, just listen and allow the calming waters to just calm me down, and kind of finding a sense of direction. So to get to a place like that is difficult. It takes time to get to such a place, but it's very important. I do walks. I bring people into nature, maybe not as far away or as such a journey to get to. Some people, they're living in cities. They haven't really been into wild areas. Climbing up mountains, going down to the river, finding a clean river where you can get in, maybe have a swim. So these are things as well. I think from the regenerative side, I think it's important that to try to affect the world where you are locally. So as a new immigrant here, I live in Pared, near Carcavelos, so in between the Ribeira das Marianas and the Ribeira the Sassueiras, the two little rivers that go into Carcavelos Beach. So taking those as like those little river basins as an area to work around and to get to know. So walking around, getting to know the nature, starting to wander up the river, down the river, starting to try to connect with the new people that are here that might, I'm the new person here, so connecting with groups, places, moments as well. So there are some of the things that I try to do. And I think then it's, from that, it's trying to understand, well, what would an improved territory look like? What would it be like? You know, could we actually go and scoop up and drink the water again? That's a beautiful dream, but at the moment it's, you know, it's not possible, especially last week when we had blue dye coming from some industrial unit completely discoloring the water and killing the baby ducklings that were in the water, sadly.
Well, if I may add, I really believe we are getting from this era of disconnection, and maybe I can use a metaphor of the in-cage animal, you know, like when we go to the zoo, and that kind of virtual reality we built for them. Like if you go and you see the lions, they kind of try to develop this kind of a scenario so the animals feel at home. And that's so surreal, you know, since I'm a kid, especially lions. I always love lions and cats, big cats and small cats. And I'm a cat man, I'm a cat person. And I always was so depressed about it, like in the circus as well. When the lions get in, I really hate it. I believe humanity at our moment, we're living in a golden cage. I can watch it in person in the streets or any place when people just disconnect from the world that is surrounding them and just look to a screen minutes and minutes and minutes. And, you know, sometimes I'm with persons and I do fight against that instinct of going checking, do I have another message? So I strongly believe this is a poison device, that it's like a friend of mine talk. This is not a phone anymore. This is a computer that actually makes some phone calls as well. And it's by design, I believe it's done to disconnect us from the natural, from the environment. And sometimes I struggle with persons, thank you God, not with you, for example. I think we never were like watching message while we were together speaking when I meet you. And we are there. We had very nice moments at Carcavel's beach by the morning to settle this meeting as well, to settle other things. So I believe humankind, like we are more and more living in this kind of golden cage, and like the wild animal that we kind of make the scenario, this is done to make us feel that is not just to understand my son that I deeply love, 23-year-old, when I comment with him, hey, you know, Thomas, can you just give me a moment? Let's disconnect. And usually the narrative is, yeah, Dad, but I have my rights. I should be free, you know, to watch if I have a message. And of course, it's a checkmate, you know. And I'm like, yeah, man, sure, because you are free, but you are disconnecting. And with that comes a lot of lack of reaction to humanity causes, for example. And there's like, we have to deal in our times, our generation, especially the younger ones, we are dealing with such a huge amount of content, you know. There's so much content we have to deal during the day. And in my belief, more than half is just bullshit, you know. Especially, I don't really go to social media to have my ludic time, to just going through time, like watching reels after reels or like the TikTok. I don't even have it. And I believe that makes our brain in this kind of soup, you know, just liquid soup. We kind of mesmerize it by it, and we disconnect from the surrounding environment as well, the natural. So I do believe we should work more and more to have more these kind of moments, and people can do it by themselves, of course, and they should connect themselves. But in community, I believe it's stronger and give us more sense, and that's something that I believe it's lacking. People are so disconnected. Sometimes I feel humankind in general, of course you have these kind of bubbles, But in general, humankind is starting to lose the capability and the knowledge how to live in community. And I believe that's a lot about of consuming, because when you live in community, and I'm thinking to move myself more to the countryside and disconnect myself more from Cascais, where we live, nearby Lisbon, that is quite city mode mindset as well here. And why? Because there's more need in the countryside. And when you live in community, you don't consume so much. You help each other more. Before you consume, sometimes you ask, because you have people to ask. Hey, Duncan, can you help me with this, putting the fence new? Yeah, sure, man. Well, I have some sticks you can use. It's spare from my last interview. You understand? And in the city, you just consume. Everything is resolved by consuming. People have a need, they go to the shopping, and they have the solution. If you need some food, you go to the supermarket or the hypermarket, and you have the solution. And that's something we have to rediscover. I'm not saying we should be lack of food and lack of anything, but kind of, work more about the way we are connected with the natural, with the surroundings, and by that with others and the community. Se este vídeo trouxe-te esperança, subscreve e continua a respirar connosco novas ideias. Okay, so now I would like to go to the second question I have for you. That is, what ecological values and practices guide your life? Like, can you give us any kind of example on your daily life, how you deal with this kind of a ecological way of being, the regeneration starting in us?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was kind of what I was exploring in the thesis there that I submitted, and I kind of broke it into 3 different areas. And it was related to the structure I used to explore the work. Really, why we do this work, how we're doing it, and what's emerging from the work. So by that, I broke it into the 3 elements of peace, love, and rage. So with that, the first one being the rage. So trying to understand the world, the reality that we live in. So trying to understand the level of climate breakdown, of ecological emergency, understanding the science. So understanding that the Paris Agreement was attempted to limit things to 1.5 degrees. It's gone. Hansen and other climate scientists have said 2 is already dead, and they reckon now that the climate heating might go up to 2.7 or even 3. If it does, that's probably 3 billion people dead, and that's the poorest people, those who have done the least to actually bring the change that's affecting them. So that's the rage, but it's understanding what drives that. Who are the groups, the fossil fuel groups predominantly, that knew about this decades ago, and did nothing about it. The groups that maintain the current systems of exploitation, of destruction, and get away with it. So trying to challenge those systems, trying to connect with others to call them out, and to try to create alternative systems to that. So that's kind of all summed into the rage. Understanding the injustices and the really dangerous levels of climate breakdown, which still could end up in the human species dying off. So we're not fully sure about that, but unless we see radical change, I believe the human species will go. Yeah.
Yeah, just let me comment about, that's the perfect example of the golden cage concept that I was commenting with you a while ago. That's like these rich people, of course, they can have their own bunker, they can have their own kind of escape solution, but they will be alone in this crazy world. Maybe they cannot even come out from the bunker because we don't gonna have a UV protection, whatever, something. And I would say that's a very, very good example of a golden cage concept, because it's true. The poor ones are always the ones who paying the biggest bill, but are they the ones who gonna be here and think themselves safe just because they have money and they can have all these kind of solutions? I believe so. Sorry to interrupt. So
Yeah,
let's
no,
go to the two other aspects.
yeah. So the second one then is the love, and I believe that love is the thing that that's what drives communities to work for change. The love of the communities that they're part of, the love of nature, the love of trying to keep the human species or your children alive. Now, I think that really stems from something deep down. It relates to the place where spirituality exists, for those that are religious, where they find their God. All those areas, I think, is driven by that. The love of something better, the love of having a better reality, of an improved day-to-day just living experience, for those that realize that we'll all die soon, but now we have the opportunity to live as much as possible. And I believe that that's also links into the healthy processes we can create where communities can start to engage, because I think if they're driven by this love, I think that's something that it becomes, I think, so attractive to the people who don't fully understand what's going on. There's still the idea that the eco people are the kind of weird hippies over there. The example I give is involved in a community garden. I've been involved in different community gardens in many different countries, but with a little community garden in Barcelona. It was in the city centre, so it was a taken over occupied space, but people passed the little door, they'd look in and they'd see like kids watering plants, or maybe 100 people eating together. They mightn't fully understand it, but they could see that there was something wholesome in this space. And after time, they're passing and looking in. Eventually, the neighbors started crossing the threshold, coming into the garden and saying, I don't fully understand what you're doing, but it looks amazing. Like, what's going on? We want to be part of this. Yes. So I think that's something I don't think we use enough. We don't use this as in our creative processes, in the communications we use, to really celebrate and to open up an idea about what is this beautiful future that we're trying to create. What are the little glimpses we have of it, and how can we use that as a means to lead to greater impact for full-on system change? So that's the second component, love. And then the last one is peace. And as I kind of put it there, it says that this is like what's emerging from the work. I say that the healthy places that are emerging through the work of regenerative community-led response to ecological emergency are all based on peace at all the levels. And I think that comes from the idea of finding the peace with nature. Also, the hard part is finding the peace with ourselves individually, like finding peace, me, Duncan, the issues that I have to deal with, whatever. Then the next section out, deal with my wife, my family. The next section, the communities that I'm part of. Because like earlier we were talking there about, leaving the city, going out into a community, like it could be an eco village or something like that. A lot of times, the things that break down these sort of projects is conflict. And I've been involved in a lot of conflict processes. I've worked with Ecology for a few years, you might know them. I've been part of the Degrowth network and involved for many years in various different sorts of social movements. So dealing with conflict internally as groups, we have issues, how we deal with that is very important. And I still think, even though we're placing more attention on it in recent years, we still have to go further. And part of the regenerative challenge is to not see conflict as a negative thing that needs to be pushed away. No, it's when certain things arise that we've got tools and mechanisms to deal with it together, learn from it, and if transformation is needed, then we have the steps to go to a deeper or a better place. So yeah, like I've part of the work and the journey over the last few decades. I've spent different amounts of time in eco villages, And I've done research with GEN, the Global Eco Village Network, and through Ecology and some of these projects. And we've looked at, these difficult issues, but also what processes are being tested to try to make better governance systems, how we make decisions better, and trying to bring in tools where if we have conflicts, how we deal with that. And like my time in Ecology was dealing with I suppose quite a difficult moment after COVID and other things that were going on, especially here in Europe. So they're the three components, I suppose, to answer your question. That's how I try to engage. I don't know if I've fully answered your question or if you need
more than fully, man. That's amazing. That's great. Rage, love and peace, and by love, I believe we can connect only by love. I have a personal kind of, not a mantra, like my inner wish list every time I blew a candle or I see a star in the sky going through, how you say it? Estrela cadente in
like a
star?
fugazi or
in English.
A shooting star.
Shooting star, yeah.
Shooting stars.
So, and that wish comes in three parts as well. That is always peace, love, and happiness. And I kind of took a lot of years to get to these three wishes, make it them in one, because I believe only in a state of peace we can open ourselves to love. And usually, of course, you can have the inner love by nature that I'm sure we share in others. But to others, only in peace, inner peace, you can have no conflict, and then you connect with others with love. So by opening yourself to love, for sure you're gonna have happy moments. So that's like my personal wish list always, like peace, love, and happiness. That's what I try to by design work in myself, my life, and my relation with others. And yeah, man.
Well, just to come back to that, because I suppose one of the points that I'd really like to try to drive home through this conversation, it's I suppose I come from more the world of social movements now, like anti-capitalist on the streets, trying to shut stuff down, trying to take over our roads for
the rage.
Well, no, that's just a journey I've come through, and been involved I lived in England when the war started in Iraq, the illegal war in Iraq. Very involved with the Peace Network in that time, and then involved with indigenous support when living in Brazil. My wife from the Andes, and understanding that people are still being exterminated at the edges of the natural world for profit, for short-term profit, and systems that destroy their rivers and things like that. Yeah,
people and animals and beings like trees. I think we should be present in that. It's not only us. In a war, as you know, it's unbelievable in an ecological way what you really do as a collapse moment, like for everything. Sorry for the comment.
Yeah, no, totally agree. It's not. We still have our egocentric, our human-centric biases, the blindnesses that we need to work with always. But like, for example, Brian's little friend, he's up there. It's Pavel. He was given to me an indigenous friend from where Brazil, Bolivia, and Peru meet in Puerto Maldonado. It's the largest illegal gold mine in Latin America. So his community, he came to Europe it was in a previous few years ago, but he came to try to get Europe to help stopping this sort of work, because the gold ends up in the Western world predominantly, but yeah, the waters are contaminated, the fish die, the plants, the potatoes, the mandioca, it's all destroyed. So people are just eating poison because of the mining process. But the point is, what I was trying to get to was that, so that's my trajectory. Now, I've come from that very solidarity-based, understanding the real difficult side of the destructive processes of the modern world, but trying to take steps to stop that. And one of the problems I found is that, especially in Europe, the kind of the idea that, you know, we can just leave the world and go into a nice little eco village and live our little nice little dream. And those things are beautiful, and in often cases they're very needed. I think a lot of people are broken, they've come through trauma, so there's a need to be in such places. But sometimes the kind of the social movements who are mostly in the streets, in the cities, pushing for change, are trying to shut stuff down, feel a lack of support from these kind of maybe new age hippie eco communities. So I still see that that's one of the tensions that exists. So this idea that, you know, to just switch off and live in nature and, you know, do meditation for world peace, I don't think it's enough. You need to find those moments of finding peace in yourself and community. But there's also a need to take on the system, to challenge it and try to shut down the systems of death and destruction. And I don't think we do enough, as given here the last few months. Portugal's very low level of people, you know, calling out genocide, for example.
You know, but if I may, going in that, I'll always go because I study so much in a deep way. Even during my course of environmental educator, the consuming, this kind of issue of consuming. And in a way, I like by my yin-yang philosophy of life, you know, the Taoism, I really identify myself with Taoism. And they always try to go to the middle. There is where the equilibrium is. And by yin-yang, by this kind of approach of life, you can always try to see the negative as, like there's the symbol, those two dots, the white dot in the black and the black dot in the white part. It represents the link you have between those two realities. And like a very simple way people can start to change, and this kind of open window going to the third and last question, that is, you can always start by consuming less, you know, by connect yourself when you need something, ask friends, ask the family. And usually I have this quite well-formed idea, and I live upon that. There's too much things in the world. People buy stuff without any kind of need. I would say it's more ego because it's new, and you go to IKEA and you spend your afternoon there looking for these thousands of things you're gonna wish to have that actually you don't need. And ask others. Sometimes there's this kind of eating system not used in the garage of someone. Usually there's this barbecue unit that someone can borrow you or sell you in a second hand. And by consuming less, I would say you start to connect more, going to a food garden, community food garden, and participate in the activities. You're gonna start to consume less greens, whatever, and everything you can do, like to consume less. I believe it will connect you more to the environment, to others, to the community. And like a very simple stuff is, oh yeah, but I need this stuff. I have a lot of this, you know, people with kids, and I do understand them, and I respect. They want the house hot, warm during the winter, etc. So they have this kind of mindset. Yeah, but I do need to consume to be comfortable and give comfort for my kids. Yeah, but you can consume less social media. You can consume less TV. And people, like, we consume so much stuff. A lot of times, even without having the notion, we are consuming in an industrial level, like Jem Bendel said. So I fully agree with that. I would like to have that.
Well, and that note, I think it's important as well, because as the recent years, decades of the ecological crisis becoming more apparent, because we're deeper into the breakdown, the response many people feel is the individual response. Now, oh, I'm going to change the light bulbs, and I'm going to consume less, I'm going to get rid of plastic. All those things are important and needed, but it's not enough. It's if we just remain looking at things from individual, you know, what little tweaks we can do, it's not enough. We have to identify that there's systems that maintain a system of destruction for profit, and we'll keep on doing it, and we'll keep messing around with international politics for their own ends until they're resisted and they're taken on by the collective ecological body of people who are also doing those little changes. So I think that's one of the important things, that it's doing individual changes is good, but we need to take on the big system. That's why system change is a collective response to the understanding the roots and trying to change that.
Of course. I just believe, again, but I strongly believe that by consuming less or different, you can start to consume, if you're against this kind of political cause, don't consume something from a country you believe it's making not right things or ethical stuff in the world, etc. But by consuming, I just like to give the people some notion of power they can have, subtle power, because it's not easy to change minds. And more I try to kind of work the humble way of being. I read Fukuoka book, The Revolution of a Straw, I believe, in Portuguese. It's an amazing book. It's such a lesson. It's such a Taoist. It's a poem, I read that book like in 2 days. And in the end, I was like crying and like, Jesus, man, what a master. And the wild agriculture, we say it in Portuguese, agricultura selvagem. So the wild way he has, it's such a humble lesson, like who are we to kind of teach nature whatever? Who are we to condition it and to make it better? Are we making it better? Maybe for us, but not for the soil. But like you said, we are nature. So if you don't take care about the soil, you're not taking care about you. And when I say you, maybe your kids or your grandsons, whatever. So it's and every time like I'm visiting and study a lot of communities as well, and they all, like even the example in Portugal, Tamera, they all have to deal with this kind of conflict level with the local communities. And I'm developing this kind of idea that maybe we should be even more humble. Who are we to teach to the locals how they should behave? Of course, they do a lot of things we know by science they are wrong. But who are we? Who are we going to the shepherd and say, look, you shouldn't do this way or shouldn't do that way? So I believe like, if you want to make it something different, it's going to have to be inner side of society, and to give small tips, sometimes to give this small notion of power that people do have. They can stop consuming more. They can start to consume less. They can start to, like you said, having just beautiful moments with others, and without changing any money, without paying nothing. And actually, when you save things, like my eco fanatic part, like I live single, okay, so I know in a family it's different, but I spend around 2 gas bottles a year. And people are like, oh, yeah, but you live single. And then I say, yeah, but how many you are? Imagine a family, a couple with a kid. We are 3. Okay, let's count the kid as a person. 3 plus 2 a year, it's 6 bottles a year. How many bottles you spend? And I have some like, oh, wow, we spend like 3 bottles a month. And I cook with, I don't know how to say it in English, o calor residual. When you're cooking, you can switch off the gas 5 minutes. Like now I boil my spaghetti like 2 minutes and then I turn it off. And while I do other stuff, it's still cooking. So there's so many things, not saying people should go eco-fanatic like me, and make their lives like I make my life as this kind of experimental laboratory stuff. I live without a fridge 2 years now, more than 2 years. Do I use the fridge of my landlord? Yeah, but she has 2 fridges in her house. And I love this, and now I'm gonna make my refrigerator with 2 clay buckets, how do you say, vasos, with 2 clay. I'm gonna use these thermodynamic principles to make a refrigerator. It's not a fridge, but I believe I'm gonna get maybe 5 to 12 degrees of amplitude, minus 5 to 12 degrees on that device. and people can explore, but a lot of times people don't have time and they have the needs. Maybe we call it emotional needs, but we have to respect. And this is why I like to give small tips, simple things people can do, like consume less and start to connect more. And like you said, that I love, live by beauty, live by love. And you don't need money to love nobody. You don't need money to love nothing. You just need to be in peace. Thank you to hear my comment. I hope you like it. You want to add something more to the question?
No, I'm
Okay.
happy to move on.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now I would like to ask you the third and last of this interview. What would you say to someone who feels and seeks inspiration to begin a more regenerative life?
I suppose the first thing is to look around where you are. It can be out in the countryside, it can be in the city. If you're like me, a new immigrant in a new country, there's a whole world to learn about. But even to be if you're in the place where you've always been, there's no end of learning. So if you go out, especially walk around, try to understand. I think rivers are a key part to the regenerative process. So try to understand what river basin you're in. Like here, we've coastal streams, small streams, like the two I mentioned earlier on. So they're only a few kilometers up. But if you're inside in Lisbon, like yesterday, I was doing a walk around the river Alcantara, which is now a lost, hidden river underneath the ground, underneath all the trainways and roadways. But the river is still there, and we were walking around and getting to know that neighbourhood, going up to Bellaflor in Campolide, seeing the agroecology projects there, meeting different people. So understand what is your area, and if that's one little river basin, what is that river? And then if that's part of another basin, and if that's part of another basin, because Alcantara, like Bellaflor goes into Alcantara, Alcantara goes into the Tejo. The Tejo is a huge big river that connects Madrid, Cáceres, and many other places with Lisbon. So this idea of all these different, this fractal approach of your community is depending on the scale that you're looking at things, and that's one of the keys as well in the regenerative way. So you can be active at the very micro or the very macro, and to try to see and understand those different levels, and find ways to connect with those other groups at those different levels. So if you know what your route is, try to walk the river, try to find out. A lot of it will be cut off or no-go areas, derelict areas where normally people have made tracks to go through, because unfortunately a lot of our rivers and general water and green spaces are treated as kind of dead zones or not usable zones, waste areas. So in my city in Dublin, we did walks around and we made bikeways and walkways and community gardens and zones that in the past have been used for a lot of heroin abuse and things like that, and syringes are around. So walk around your area, try to find out what exists there, look at maps, try to find maps of what resources are there. So there's various different ones. So it could be like community groups, could be art spaces, it could be gardens. Try to, if you're not already connected with people in your area, which I think is part of the modern world, this alienation that people feel in the modern world, try to find ways to connect with your local neighbors. Like we're part of our residents association, the Associación de Moradores here. So that's a way to connect with people, to start to, it's lovely to talk with the old people now that are our friends here, and passing by when we meet them, talking about when they set up the association in '74 with the Portuguese Revolution, how it came about. So understand the history of the place, understand what the needs were and what the needs are today. And if you can take that further about actually finding means to explore what a transformed territory might look like, great. So like we've both been familiar here with, unfortunately, we've got a strange real estate development process along the Cascais coast where certain illegal things are allowed to happen, like the development of the Hilton, the Quinta dos Ingleses is in mid-destruction now. It's being held up thanks to the local struggle by people in the courts. But yeah, if there's areas that need help, that are calling out for a bit of love and support, and a community are looking for support, help them out. And then if you're going beyond that, then you can start looking at the wider area, the region, the national, or even the wider, like here, Iberia in this little corner of Europe is quite strong because it's a peninsula. So there's a lot of like projects that are working around, ecological change and measures, including, offers like to go on learning experiences through Erasmus Plus projects or other sorts of projects. So that's a start. But yeah, I think the most part is to really try to connect with the place where you are, understand what's gone on, understand who you're there with, and if you're able to find means to dream collectively about what an improved world for that region might look like, try to make it happen.
Wow, what an amazing insight. Thank you so much, Duncan. I would like to add that you were speaking, and I keep reminding that famous sentence in permaculture world, that is, think global, act local. I believe it's from Bill Mollison or the Old Green. I don't know which them, but it's an amazing, and I really by design try to live and work, and even the ECOS channel, this kind of attentive to do something and contribute to this cause reality that unfortunately is so parallel to the main one, the mainstream one. Even so, like on my PDC, I was studying that. There was this very, very cool moment I would like to share. That is, at the beginning we had this kind of questions to answer just for us to understand how much we were or we were not in this kind of a regenerative mindset and movement. And there I was like, how do you recycle your trash? Yeah. Do you that? Yeah. Do you save whatever? Yeah, man. Oh, I'm the great. And then there was a question, do you know the name of the street cleaner of your place? And I was amazed because I had this thing with my mom when I was a kid. She kind of forced me to be introduced to the street cleaner of the place because I was ashamed of him. And she took me, you were ashamed of but that's a very important, element in the society. She gave me the hand and she took me to the guy. And it was these 15 amazing moments. He told me all about what his stuff, all the kind of brushes he have and the tools. And I was like amazed, and the guy was very nice. So it changed completely my mind, but I never knew the name. And that question was like, I love when, things make me go deeper. And I could not say yes to that question. I was like, fuck, man, I don't know the name of the street cleaner of my place. And since then, I start to ask them the name, to share my spare clothes I have, ask them if they have any need, because such an important and special person that every day by day, they go there and they clean the street you live in. So now I know Junior is at the moment, and there was others, and I always ask. And if people feel inspired, here it is, another small, simple tool to give the persons how do they can actually connect with love with the local community. That the street cleaner, it's part of it as well. Thank you so much, Duncan. As you know, here in this series, we always like to invite our interviewers to leave a seed, a sentence, something you want to share with us in a simple way that make others to reflect, to get inspired. Do you have something for us, like going like what if, starting the census,
Yeah. What I can leave with you as a little seed is what if activating our collective peace, love and rage is the only means to counter ecological emergency.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Duncan, for your time, for your love, for your inner peace mindset, and for your rage, that it's important to and make us sometimes to move, go deeper, and make our statement more clear. Thank you so much to be here in the channel, and man, I just hope to see you soon, almost for sure. Let's keep in touch, my friend.
Yeah, see you soon. Hopefully go for a swim in that mighty Atlantic, that wild and magic Atlantic Ocean. And thank you very much for the chance to share a few thoughts and to have this conversation. And look forward to chatting more about the Tao as well with you. So see you soon and viva la Pachamama.
Se este projeto inspirou-te, subscreve o canal e caminha connosco nesta jornada de regeneração.